All right, you guys, what is going on? It's your boy Town Biz. So Deontay Wilder, he returns to the ring and he gets a seventh round TKO of Herndon. Terrell Herndon, basically at the end of the day, we all knew what he was there for. He was there just, to get Wilder ready for bigger things to come. Nobody expected him to win the fight. At the end of the day, Wilder went in there and he, basically did something that we're not used to seeing him display, which was patience. And, at times Wilder looked at decent, landing nice jabs, landing an occasional hook. I think if Wilder would have focused more on the body, I think he would have been able to get him out of there. And, of course, Wilder swung um, wildly at times. So with that being said, I'll take it for what it is worth. This was just really a tune-up fight to see could they get him back in somewhat of contention. you know and that's just basically the bottom line. So I don't know what's next for him. you know I know that they still are talking about a possible Anthony Joshua showdown, but the way Anthony Joshua looked in his last fight, this could be a toss up. I think Anthony Joshua needs to get back in the ring because at the end of the day, this would be Amir Khan and Kell Brook, a fight that people wanted to see, and it just took so long for the fight to finally happen to where it didn't have the luster and the fans wasn't clamoring for it. At one time, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua could have been the biggest fight made when both of them were undefeated. Whatever the case may be, they decided um, to go a different direction. It was a whole bunch of finger pointing, and we just never could get the fight made. I just think for just the culture and just for fight's sake, they should just try to make Wilder versus Joshua. At this point, nobody cares who wins because Anthony Joshua, I think, got one foot into retirement. I think Deontay Wilder, that's all he came back for is basically to get a couple of fights in. Basically, um, try to just get back in the form to where basically a fight with Joshua is semi sellable. Like I said before, now it isn't like past its prime as far as Pacquiao and Floyd go. Well, then again, if you really think about it, both Wilder and Joshua are up there in age. But I just think the best time for this fight that happened was back in 2000. Like, I mean, for real, back in 2019 or something, and we just couldn't get the fight to happen. And then Anthony Joshua went on to lose to Louise, and that just offset everything. Well, I don't know about a gun. I don't know if that's in the cards because I don't know about that. Um, I think Wilder should just fight another guy like this and then hopefully get Joshua back in the ring. Put Joshua in the ring with basically um, a mediocre fighter and Joshua, get that dude out of there. And we could just try to get, to be honest with you, we could hopefully, I mean, it's June now, try to get Joshua in the ring by like maybe August or September, late September. And then Wilder get one more fight, who knows? I mean, Wilder didn't really break that much of a sweat at the end of the day. I mean, they could try to find Wilder, get him another fight, like possibly for maybe August or something. And then Wilder wins his next fight. Joshua wins, his comeback fight. And then maybe years in, we can get Wilder and Joshua. And both of these dudes, they'll make a decent amount of money. Um, it'll be a pay-per-view fight. Just put some decent people on the undercard, and then both of these dudes can walk off into the sunset. I mean, back then, back between 2018 2019, you talking about both of these dudes could have made probably 20-30 million a piece. Now probably, who knows what the purse would be. I think the Francis Ngannou thing is over with, because at the end of the day, he had 2 professional fights and he lost both of them, even though a lot of people thought he did enough to get, you know, the victory versus Tyson Fury. He basically exposed a lot of kinks in Tyson Fury's armor, which helped Usyk like beat Tyson Fury in back-to-back fights. So we would have to see. We would have to see. I know pretty much. I know pretty much Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua played games, you know, concerning that fight. And then at the same time, Al Heyman didn't really want the fight to happen for some strange reason either, because, you know, at the end of the day, Al Heyman let one of the belts go over there, you know, and then the people that was handling homeboy, Charles Martin, they, from what I heard, they screwed him out of his money. So, Charles Martin was really a PBC fighter, and he could have easily set Deontay Wilder and Charles Martin up. If Deontay Wilder beats Charles Martin, Deontay Wilder has 2 of the 4 belts, but he basically sent Anthony Joshua a belt gift wrapped. Anthony Joshua got rid of Charles Martin, then he had 3 to 4 belts, and then this is when all this stuff started. At the end of the day, to a certain degree, I have to hold Al Heyman accountable. That made no sense. And I think to a certain degree, Deontay Wilder had an issue with Al Heyman, even though Quadras kept allegedly, Eddie Hearn and Al Heyman supposed to have some kind of deal where they was gonna fight Deontay Wilder next, and it never happened. And it was supposed to be on HBO or something, but the fight was supposed to take place in the States. Then Anthony Joshua got that 3rd belt, so then I think that's when Matchroom had got to deal with the Zone. I think that's when they first had landed to deal with the Zone. And then this is when you started having this stuff, this tug of war networks and stuff. So that's what happened. Now, AJ fans will make it look like they really was trying to go out of their way to make the Wilder fight happen, and that just not what happened. That is not what happened. I know what happened behind the scenes because I cover boxing. I know for a fact why the fight didn't happen. And that fight didn't happen because of 2 people. It didn't happen because of, well, actually 3. Anthony Joshua wasn't too sure of himself. Anthony Joshua wasn't sure he could beat Deontay Wilder because he was scared of that atomic, right hand of his. And Eddie Hearn had some concern. Now, I don't know what Al Heyman's angle was in this, but that fight didn't happen because of 3 people. And you just got to keep it 100, and I'm just keeping it 100. Well, is it called boxing politics? Because that's what it really come down to. It's about politics in boxing. So I know it's gonna be people. They gonna get on there. They gonna talk all kind of shit about, wow, oh my God, this is the worst fight. I mean, I'm expecting that. Listen. At the end of the day, I know what I expected to see. I didn't expect to see Wilder of 10 years ago. The man is 39 years old. He's gonna be 40 in October. So if you're thinking you're going to see Vince Deontay, see, that's the thing. When you become a professional fighter, you have to adjust as you get older. You're not going to fight at age 38 how you fought at age 28. You have to make adjustments as you get older. See, Floyd Mayweather conditioned himself and prepared himself to fight into his 30s. Same thing with Andre Ward. Why those guys was Andre Ward retired at age 34, if I'm not mistaken, 33, 34. So those guys were able to make the adjustments needed. That was the problem with Amir Khan. That was semi the problem with Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. thought he could fight the same way forever. I think if Roy Jones would have learned how to be more of a 1-2, 1-2, or 1-2, 1-3 type of guy, I think he would have had a little bit more. And then plus the Tarver fight, and then Roy kept moving up in weight. I think after Roy had fought Luis and he won a heavyweight title, I think Roy should have walked off into the sunset, and Roy continued to fight. And then he tried to go back down after fighting that heavyweight, and I think that was detrimental to him. Yeah, it was a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes, and then for some reason, Al Heyman got mad at Lou DiBella because actually Lou DiBella tried to he basically tried to take Deontay Wilder over to the UK, or he tried to go behind Al Heyman's back, and him and Al Heyman got into it because he tried to make that fight behind Al Heyman, which like I said, I never understood what was Al Heyman's motive. I just never understood that. It was just weird. I just wish Al Heyman would have gave us an explanation, like, why did you interfere with Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua not happening? Why did you prolong that? But then again, he really didn't want Errol Spence to fight Terrence Crawford. And this is why some people had issues with Al Heyman in PBC. And then the problem was you had a tug of war between the Al Heyman apologists and then people like me. And when people like me questioned Al Heyman, I got called a coon, and which I thought was mind-boggling. And anybody that knows me, I'm the furthest thing from that. I think me being a little too honest has, hurt me along the way, because these dudes know who I am. And a lot of times, if you don't conform with what they want you to say, then they ostracize you or they freeze you out. Because like I said, the PBC has frozen me out of a lot of fights. I'm still, I'm still like, talking to the UFC to see, can I get into Crawford versus Canelo? Yeah, I see somebody trolling, so I had enough of that. I'm not even going for that. So, he had to go. So, like I said, I'm expecting people to shit on Deontay Wilder's performance. I mean, at the end of the day, he could have came in there and fought like, vintage Sugar Ray Leonard, or he could have fought like Muhammad Ali, and people would have still had something to say, because that's just how a lot of these people get down. They only are focused on negativity. Some people complain just to be complaining. Like I said, if you expected Wilder to fight how he fought, 10 years ago, then the joke was on you. I mean, you for real, the joke is on you. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, I saw something. I think Wilder has no choice but to be patient now. I think if Wilder would have fought that way a few years ago, like how he tried to fight tonight, where he was utilizing a jab and he wasn't like head hunting, I think Wilder would have fared a lot better in a couple of a few of those fights. I think he would have did a lot better versus Parker. And he might have did better against Zhang, because Zhang is not like, it's not like Zhang is somebody like anyway. Well, you have to understand, like I said, his timing was still off a little bit because he still was like at times punching off balance. Manny Pacquiao used to do that sometimes because of his awkward form. So Manny used to punch off balance a lot of times, and that's why sometimes he would pay, especially against Marquez, because Marquez would make him pay every time he was off balance. Every time he would land something, Marquez would boop 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 boop. Well, you have to understand, Wilder is pushing 40. I keep trying to tell you. You know how y'all say today's prices ain't yesterday's prices. Well, this version of Wilder ain't what we were used to seeing, where he was just having these highlight reel of knockouts and everything, where he just basically would just load up and use the right hand. And after a while, people started to catch wind of that. People started to like look out for that. And I think if Wilder would have, like I said, had a little bit more patience and would have learned more discipline, I think he would have fared, which he only has 4 losses. It's not like this dude got double-digit losses like Orlando Salido or people like that. I mean, he has double-digit. I mean, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't have that. He only has 4. He only has 4 losses. Now, unfortunately, out of those 4 losses, he's been stopped. But we got to see. Well, you can't, like I said, you can't just sit up here and just think you're Thanos and just always depend. That's the problem. He depended too much on that right hand. And I understand when you have freakish power like that, you always believe that it takes just one punch. But sometimes you're going to have to use more than one punch. You're going to have to go into the toolbox and see what type of tools you're going to pull out to, you know, get the car running. So, you can't always use the same socket wrench on, every time. You need different tools for whatever the job is. And I think you seen this at 39 years old. Cause like I said, people Joseph Parker was looking for that right hand all night. Same thing with Zhang. If he would have boxed probably the way tonight versus Zhang, I think he would have been able to eventually set Zhang up and possibly get him up out of there, or at least put him on his ass. I think what's going on now, like I said before, I just think they just really want to make the Joshua fight. And I just think they should just make this fight just for the culture. Like I said, see what happens with Joshua. Joshua should just try to get back in the ring. Just fight somebody, just fight like a mediocre opponent, and just win. And like I said, we could get Wilder and Joshua, maybe at the end of the year. Well, he really didn't take that much punishment because, the guy was kind of timid. And you could just tell when he started getting hit, Wilder's punches was hurting him. He was stumbling and everything. He basically didn't want to become a highlight reel, but I think 1 or 2 more punches, he was going to get flattened because it was inevitable that it was going to eventually land on him. And basically, Ray Corona, he basically saw enough. He really wasn't putting up resistance. He really got dropped like two or 3 times. You can make an argument, but a couple of them was called a slip. I mean, it's one of them tit for tat things, but the dude was running out of gas. Like I said, he wasn't there to win the fight. The dude probably needed some money, so basically he just went in there to do his thing. He basically was like, I'm gonna do what I can. I'm gonna try not to, become a highlight reel. But when he started getting touched up, you could tell he wanted out. And this dude, if I'm not mistaken, this dude got beat by what's my guy's name? He got beat by Richard Torres, and he also got beat by Effie Ajaba. Man, and I was just looking at the setting. They definitely was in. They definitely what did Vegas, New York, or some. some I don't know how much Wilder got paid, but Wilder said he good on money. He just said he just want to, continue to fight. Wilder said he was gonna fight until his 40s. So, like I said, I really think Wilder is just sticking around for the Anthony Joshua fight, and I'm gonna talk about that later on. So, with that being said, let me get up out of here. Appreciate you guys.